I still remember the sound of the hospital hallway falling completely silent when the doctors announced that the elderly man in the intensive care unit had survived yet another critical day because an anonymous blood donor had arrived just in time. Only hours later, the powerful CEO who had spent weeks mocking a struggling single father discovered that the man she had dismissed as insignificant was the same stranger who had quietly been donating his rare blood again and again to keep her own father alive. The truth didn't simply shatter her pride, it forced everyone around her to question what true wealth really meant, that if you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances can change lives. Please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that inspire compassion. Graham Foster had never imagined that life would become a daily battle between raising his 8-year-old daughter, Harper, and keeping his small auto repair business alive. Every sunrise began the same way. He packed Harper's lunch, walked her to school, opened the garage before most people had finished breakfast, and worked until his hands became stained with grease and tiny cuts that never seemed to heal. His customers admired his honesty, but honesty did not always pay the bills. Every dollar mattered. Every unexpected expense threatened the fragile balance of his little family. Yet despite the pressure, Graham never allowed bitterness to settle inside him. Harper often noticed that her father smiled at strangers more than strangers smiled back. Across the city, Clarissa Whitmore ruled Whitmore Dynamics with remarkable intelligence and relentless discipline. She had inherited responsibility much earlier than expected after her father, Roland Whitmore, became critically ill with a rare blood disorder that required constant transfusions. Clarissa carried enormous stress on her shoulders, but somewhere along the way, that burden hardened into arrogance. She judged people by appearance, education, and financial success. To her, weakness looked like failure, and failure deserved little sympathy. Employees respected her achievements but feared her sharp tongue and impossible expectations. One bright afternoon, Whitmore Dynamics experienced a mechanical failure in one of its specialized company vehicles. Since the nearest dealership required several days before offering repairs, someone recommended Graham's garage because of his reputation for solving difficult mechanical problems. Clarissa disliked relying on a neighborhood repair shop, but she reluctantly approved the arrangement. When she first arrived, she immediately noticed the faded building, the aging equipment, and Graham wiping grease from his hands while helping Harper finish her homework at a small desk near the office window. Instead of seeing devotion, Clarissa saw poverty. Instead of seeing responsibility, she saw someone she assumed had settled for less. She quietly laughed while speaking to her assistants, suggesting that someone raising a child inside an old repair garage probably had little understanding of excellence. Her words spread through the staff standing nearby. Several people smiled awkwardly while Graham simply lowered his eyes and continued examining the damaged engine without responding. The silence hurt more than any argument could have. Harper looked toward her father with confusion, wondering why adults could be so cruel without raising their voices. Graham completed the complicated repair far earlier than expected. The vehicle performed better than it had in years. Engineers from Whitmore Dynamics inspected every detail and admitted privately that the workmanship exceeded factory standards. Graham accepted payment with gratitude and returned immediately to work because another customer was already waiting. Clarissa left believing the encounter was over. She never imagined their lives had already been connected for months. Every Tuesday and Friday during the daytime, Graham quietly visited the regional medical center. The nurses knew him well. They welcomed him warmly because very few people possessed his exceptionally rare blood type. Whenever Roland Whitmore's condition suddenly worsened, the hospital often contacted Graham first. He never asked whose life he was helping. He never accepted payment. He simply rolled up his sleeve, donated blood, rested briefly, and returned to work before Harper finished school. The doctors repeatedly thanked him, but Graham always gave the same humble answer in different words. If his blood could help another family keep someone they loved, then refusing would be impossible. He had made that promise years earlier after losing his own wife during childbirth complications. He understood the unbearable pain of saying goodbye too soon. If another family could be spared that heartbreak, he wanted to help. Meanwhile, Clarissa spent every afternoon sitting beside her father's hospital bed. She often held his hand while pretending everything would be fine. Roland remained optimistic despite his illness. He constantly reminded his daughter that success meant little without compassion. She nodded politely but rarely absorbed his wisdom because business demands occupied every corner of her mind. One afternoon the hospital experienced an emergency. Roland's condition declined much faster than expected. Supplies of his blood type had become dangerously low. Nurses immediately contacted their emergency donor list. Graham arrived less than an hour later. He had been repairing an elderly couple's truck when the hospital called. Without hesitation, he apologized to the customers, locked the garage temporarily, picked Harper up from school early, explained that someone urgently needed help, and drove directly to the hospital. Harper waited quietly with a coloring book while her father completed another donation. Clarissa happened to pass the donation wing while meeting one of Roland's specialists. Through the partially open doorway, she briefly noticed a familiar face resting after giving blood. She recognized Graham immediately but assumed he must be donating for a relative. She continued walking without another thought. Only later that afternoon did the chief physician thank her for having such a generous anonymous donor available whenever Roland's condition became critical. Clarissa looked confused. The physician explained that the same volunteer had already donated several times over many months and had likely extended Roland's life repeatedly. Without those donations, several emergencies might have ended very differently. Curiosity replaced confidence. She quietly asked for the donor's identity. Hospital privacy rules prevented immediate disclosure, but after obtaining proper consent from Graham, the physician arranged a meeting because Graham had never objected to being identified if it encouraged more people to donate. Clarissa entered the consultation room expecting almost anyone except the man she had mocked only days earlier. The sight left her speechless. Graham stood beside Harper, looking slightly tired but completely calm. There was no anger in his face, no desire for recognition, no expectation of gratitude. Clarissa suddenly remembered every dismissive glance, every careless remark, every silent humiliation she had caused. The weight of those memories became almost unbearable. For the first time in many years, words failed her. The physician gently explained that Graham had never once asked whose life he was saving. He had simply responded whenever the hospital called because compatible donors were extremely rare. Clarissa felt something inside her collapse. Everything she believed about success suddenly looked painfully small compared with the quiet generosity standing before her. As she struggled to apologize, Graham listened patiently. He understood that guilt could sometimes teach lessons pride never could. He admitted that her comments had hurt, not because of his income, but because Harper had heard them too. Children often remembered moments adults forgot. That truth touched Clarissa more deeply than any accusation could have. She knelt before Harper and sincerely apologized for becoming the kind of adult she never wanted children to admire. Harper accepted the apology with surprising grace. Children often forgave faster than adults. That simple kindness became another lesson for Clarissa. Over the following weeks, she began changing in ways that surprised everyone inside Whitmore Dynamics. She spent more time listening than speaking. She visited every department during the daytime, learning about employees' families and personal struggles. She introduced emergency family leave policies, expanded health benefits, and created scholarships for workers raising children alone. None of those decisions erased her earlier mistakes, but they proved she intended to become better rather than merely appear better. She also visited Graham's garage again. This time she arrived without assistance, expensive speeches, or assumptions. She watched him patiently teaching Harper how to repair an old bicycle while explaining that every broken thing deserved an honest chance before being discarded. Those words echoed inside Clarissa's heart. Perhaps people deserved the same opportunity. Roland's health slowly stabilized. Although his illness remained serious, the regular donations and improved treatment gave him precious extra time with his daughter. When he finally learned the identity of the donor, tears filled his eyes. He insisted on meeting Graham personally. During their meeting, Roland thanked him not only for the blood but for giving his daughter something even more valuable, perspective. He confessed that wealth had built companies, but compassion had built character. Clarissa quietly held her father's hand while realizing that the greatest inheritance he could leave behind was not his fortune but his values. Months passed. The small garage gradually attracted more customers after engineers from Whitmore Dynamics openly praised Graham's extraordinary workmanship. Instead of offering charity, Clarissa awarded his business several maintenance contracts based entirely on quality and reliability. Graham accepted proudly because he wanted opportunities, not pity. Harper noticed the difference too. She no longer remembered Clarissa as the woman who mocked her father, she remembered the woman who learned how to say she was wrong. That transformation inspired everyone around them. Hospital staff organized a community blood donation drive featuring ordinary citizens whose quiet generosity had saved countless lives. Graham reluctantly agreed to participate, hoping his story might encourage others. Hundreds of people arrived. Many admitted they had never considered donating blood before hearing how one anonymous donor had kept a family together without expecting recognition. The event collected enough donations to help patients for weeks. Standing among volunteers, Clarissa realized that true leadership was never about standing above people. It was about standing beside them. As the afternoon sun warmed the hospital courtyard, Graham watched Harper laugh with children whose parents had also come to donate. Hope filled the air more powerfully than any speech could have. The man who had once been judged because of his worn clothes and modest garage had quietly become the strongest example of humanity in the entire city, not because he was wealthy, not because he was famous, but because he chose kindness even when no one was watching. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Before you go, please leave a meaningful comment telling us this. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone's quiet kindness completely changed the way you saw the world? Your story may encourage someone else who needs hope today. Some people spend their entire lives trying to prove how important they are, while others quietly save lives without asking for applause. In the end, Graham reminded everyone that real greatness is measured not by titles, money, or status, but by the compassion we show when nobody expects anything in return. And for Clarissa, the greatest success she ever achieved was not building a larger company, it was becoming a better human being, one humble act of kindness at a time.